Good afternoon to everyone. Welcome to the sixth edition episode of Sports Talk 757, produced by the Hampton Roads Sports Commission and the Hampton Roads Chamber, a show to really reach out to sports legends and administrators and coaches and different ones in the region to continue to bring light of sports in this time. I also want to thank our sponsors, Atlantic Bay Mortgage, Optima Health, the Hampton Roads Chamber. I wanted to go from there. We have with us a great guest, Mike London, William & Mary, Richmond, UVA, University of Maryland, and now back at William & Mary, Howard University. Coach London, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me. Good seeing you.
Good. Well, just tell us a little bit about how special it is and what it means to you to be back at William & Mary.
Yeah, it's been, sometimes life is cyclical. I was raised in the Tidewater area, went to two high schools, Tabb High School, and my dad retired from the Air Force. And by the way, before I say anything else, happy Veterans Day to all the men and women in uniform that wore the uniform or that currently wear it. I am the son of a military family, Air Force family, 30 years. Dad fought in the Vietnam War, dealing with the effects of Agent Orange right now, but still doing well. Grandfather that fought in World War II. So I know what the day means to a lot of people, but it's always coming from the family and the background that I'm very thankful of the men and women in uniform. So I wanted to get that out first and foremost. And I forgot the question you just asked because I wanted to make sure I spoke about the veterans and how thankful I am to everybody in uniform.
Well, Coach London took it upon himself to take it to the Veterans Day. And since he did so, thanks to all the veterans out there, many of them who are in our office, and my very own brother, retired Marine Corps colonel out there, certainly thanks to his service, which I've already let him know that. But back to our question, Coach, what does it mean to be back where you started coaching at William & Mary? What does that mean to you, and how special is that?
It's kind of surreal in the fact that this is my first full-time coaching job. Back in the 90s, mid 90s, early 90s, and Coach Laycock hired me as a full-time guy. Like I said, I'd gone to high school at Tabb High School, and then I graduated from Bethel High School. My brothers and sisters, they all finished up in the Hampton Roads area. And I see the hat that you wear in 757. And I got in trouble because I said 7 Tribe 7, which we actually are in Williamsburg, and it is 757 area code. But I'll recruit 804, 703, 540, all those other area codes. But it's been a blessing. Life takes you on journeys. I've been very fortunate to have gone to William & Mary, coach at William & Mary, have gone to University of Richmond as an undergrad. Had the opportunity to coach in-state schools of higher academic learning, like UVA as well, and had a chance to move on to Howard, and then to come back to where it kind of all started. My wife's mother lives in Newport News. She's a retired teacher, and to be able to say hello to my parents, I spoke about my father and his challenges. To be able to get in the car and go visit him, have lunch, and just sit there and talk to him, and then come back and do the day's work or do the activities that I'm responsible for, it's been a tremendous blessing. So in this profession, good things happen, tough things happen. You have to adapt and overcome. And I believe that the things that have happened to me and the blessings that I've gotten to receive, the tough times you have to overcome, it makes you a better person. And now I enjoy the opportunity to coach and teach and role model and mentor these young men here at William & Mary.
Certainly. Well, as we all know, we're in the midst of a pandemic. And how has that really changed the way that you go about your daily coaching operations with your staff, with your players, and then running a program? I would imagine all sorts of guidelines, appropriations that you've made, changes in the practice schedule. If you could just take us through a little bit of that on how that's changed things.
Sure. You have to be cognizant of what's happening. This pandemic has been horrific, has affected so many different lives in so many ways. And when you're going through those things, then the government, the CDC, our local officials, our school president, Catherine Rowe, the guidelines that you come up with to be able to have a functioning educational system or aspects where Right now there's online class learning, but there's some in-person classes that are going on. And then the stipulations and the processes and protocols that are in place to be safe for students to feel like, that their best interest is at heart in terms of what they've been exposed to, in terms of testing procedures, the wearing of masks, the practicing of social distancing, hand sanitizing, just all those things have been incorporated. So this is the new normal that we're living in right now. Adapt, adjust, improvise, overcome. Those are words that everyone is learning, particularly our players, because the challenges of being a sport that has 11 guys to go against 11 guys, there's things that are presented, but our leadership did a great job in getting us started in terms of a phase one approach where there was only a certain number of people that could participate. There were no equipment or no footballs involved. And so after 14 days of going through that phase one approach, no incidences of testing positive or no incidents like that, then we'd move to phase two. In phase two, is you introduce a football, bags, or equipment. Still, you're limited to a number of people that you can have practicing. And then after you've gone through that for 14 days, then you are able to move into a phase three. And that's what we're in right now, is where you can have the team together practicing, doing what 11 on 11 looks like when you're playing a football game, but also being very cognizant of when you're on the field, your participation, your helmet's on, and then when you're off on the sidelines, your masks are up with your helmets off. So there are a lot of stipulations, a lot of protocols that we're going through. Highly, everybody that touches a ball has to hand sanitize right after the drill. The equipment that's used before we come in and practice, a temperature check. There's a healthy app that the school has that every person on campus here has to fill in and talk about their experiences for that day, if they're experiencing any symptoms. So there's a checks and balances, but it's just one of those things that's the new normal now, and that's what's been happening with us as we try to get ready for spring season.
Good. I mean, you discussed so many things there, and this intricate plan on how your staff and the university has allowed you guys to continue to progress. But with that, players want to play and players want to compete, and guys want to be at their highest level of readiness. So how have you maintained that readiness athletically and academically? And then also, how have you been able to kind of pivot to the positive? This is a time to where one could get negative or one could lose motivation. How have you kept your program at that level, that high level of readiness?
Sure. You can control. We talk about control the controllables, control the things that you can control. What we do in the classroom, what we do in the community, what we do on the field. Those are things that we can't control. Our conduct, how we embrace other students here on campus, how we interact with other student athletes in our community. Doing things the right way. So you leave practice, make sure you have your mask on. If you go visit one of the restaurants around the area, understand there's only a certain amount of people that may be involved or allowed to be in your vicinity wearing your mask. And so that's the new normal we talk about. And guys grow up and they've been playing football, since their young peewee years, and they want to compete, and they want to get out, they want to socialize, but we always have to just bring them back to the greater good of the community that's around us. It's not just the William & Mary student community, student athletes, but also the people that live in William & Mary in the community. So we don't want to be a burden or tax anything that's going on with the local facilities by controlling the things that we can control. So we challenge them. We've been Zoom meeting for quite some time, ever since back in March. We've been Zoom meeting and learning, how to do the new normal. We've come up with a saying, so what, now what? Things happen, life throws you curveballs. How do you adjust to that? So now what are we going to do? And so adapting, adjusting, and improvising is something that's kind of like I said, the new normal, but we're doing what's necessary. We want to be cognizant of what's appropriate and proper and what's required. Also, by trying to get these guys to get ready to compete for hopefully a spring season, and and let them do the things that that they feel that they're blessed and feel tremendously honored to do. So that's the challenge, and our guys have risen to the challenge. We've had some setbacks. I myself had tested positive back in early October. And, and it's amazing when you're told that and you're trying to think back, what did I do? Who was I around? And all those type of things. And then, I know people in this country have lost loved ones and have been affected by jobs and with this pandemic. And there's a certain part of the time that I was in isolation that I felt like, am I going to be in a hospital? Am I going to be on a respirator? And so you get those kind of feelings, and it's it brings, there's so many things that come back to you. And I feel really honored and blessed and fortunate to not have experienced any symptoms, to go through the isolation period, first out of fear and not knowing what's going to happen, and then out of trust, because faith, family, and football, and particularly faith, are my priorities. And knowing on the latter part of the last days of the isolation, re-emphasizing those things that are important to you, my family, people that I work with, being a role model and mentor. As tough as it is, because I'm not perfect, we're all not perfect. But when someone tells you have this debilitating, this life-threatening virus, and you go through all the aspects of thinking about what could you do, what can you do, and you come out with it of saying, listen, what I can do is speak about loving your brother, your sister, your neighbor, showing empathy towards people. You can still be aggressive, and I'm a passionate and energetic coach, but at the same time, I'm extremely blessed about just knowing that I went through this without symptoms. And so when we talk about wearing masks and doing things like that, it's important because I was one of the people that had been affected by making sure that the proper procedures are always carried out. So I'm just like I said, just tremendously blessed, and knowing that God has a plan and purpose for everybody. And my plan and purpose right now is being in Williamsburg, Virginia, coaching the Tribe.
Well, good insight, Coach. You covered a lot off that one question, and getting the guys motivated, and serving such a great example as a coach. But even having gone through the COVID symptoms and the recovery and the quarantine and all of that. And so we talked about the physical side and the example side, something I know you're very strong on, being at a UVA, being at a William & Mary, being at Howard, and your other stops at Maryland. Academics. Tell us a little bit about how you believe athletes should maintain academic excellence, and how have you all maintained that during this time?
Sure. I'm a UOR graduate, and very proud of that as well. Won the national championship in 2008 there at Richmond, which shows that you can have the best of both worlds. Being at places of academic higher integrity, the institutions like Howard, UVA, Richmond, and William & Mary, you can win championships, on the field. I mean, you can also experience world-class degrees from academic institutions or institutions of higher learning. William & Mary is a great institution, one of the top, top schools in all the country. And so when we recruit young men, we talk about, I know the NFL, we all know what it stands for, but do you know what it stands for? It stands for not for long. That's NFL. So there are dreams, hopes, and aspirations for young men to climb to the highest level, but also the reality of you're going to be a husband, a father, an employee, own a business much longer than you're going to be a football player. And so we talk about those aspects. The school here, the environment that allows young men to earn a world-class degree with excellent teachers, professors, and have a staff that believes in, it's okay that school can be cool and you can also compete. And that's what we try to talk about all the time. And hopefully young men that are interested in having the best of both world opportunities will keep seeking us out. We're just finished up our first year, so we're going into the next year with the challenges that COVID brings. But the message will stay consistent: is that getting an education for the 21st century is critical, and we want to buy into it, and we want to have those that want to be interested in purchasing it.
Certainly. So we talked UVA, we talked Richmond, we talked William & Mary, we talked the University of Maryland, and we talked Howard. All great institutions. Howard being an HBCU. If you could share for us, I'm a Norfolk State guy. The Spartans, you were a Bison. But if you could share for us, what were some of the challenges, or what were some of the unique experiences you had in HBCU?
I mean, first of all, it was, I pledged Phi Beta Sigma when I was at University of Richmond, because there were no other fraternities or sororities groups that looked like me. And there were, Corky Conyers is a gentleman that kind of started everything, and got some of my line brothers, who were also some former teammates, got us involved in that. Culture for service, service for humanity. We although we were pledging at the University of Richmond, we went off campus to Virginia Union, Virginia State. That's where we actually pledged. But you learn, Howard was a great experience for me, a sense of pride, a sense of history, a sense of knowing that, Thurgood Marshall, Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, Angela Mailou, just all those things are always brought to remembrance, and you're proud about having, being part of a culture that talks about and exudes opportunities outside of just being an athlete. And so we talked about that with the student athletes there. So yeah, it was one of those experiences that I'll cherish. Howard, President Wayne Frederick was great to me. Kerry Davis, the athletic director, the experiences there. Little Howard University goes on the road and beats UNLV, the biggest upset in college football history.
First game.
Say that, and it's just, like I said, it's again another moment that I'll never forget and I cherish. And I had a chance from Howard to move on to William & Mary when Coach Laycock, retired, and I want to continue the legacy that he brought here, but also continue to do things the right way, educate, graduate young men so they can go on to be productive citizens.
Absolutely. You spoke, and I read some articles on that. You spoke so much about family. So the William & Mary opportunity was great, but it also allowed you to get back in that area to be around family. So my next question, and a question from the audience, how do you advise young coaches who are looking to coach in college? And when we know the challenges that comes along with that, but most importantly, how do you advise those young coaches who want to be in coaching? How do you advise them on family and coaching balance?
Yeah, well, first of all, you got to be where your feet are. I mean, sometimes what happens, they're always looking for the next job. They're always looking behind their shoulders to see what's going on. And you lose focus on the most immediate, is the impact that you have right now where you currently are. And so, if you could be in charge of the tight ends and then also equipment, you could be in charge of the quarterbacks, and also, after school, there might be you out there watching to make sure the buses come and pick the students up. Whatever you're doing, be the best at that, because you'll get noticed at being the best at what you do, not necessarily but what you do off the field. I mean, on the field, but all the other things that make up your character, who you are, and the parts that people want to look at, because you're going to be dealing with people. You're going to have difficult conversations. People are always going to watch what you do and what you say and how you do it and how you respond. Those things are always being watched. And sometimes young coaches, they forget where they're at. And, again, I'm not a guy that uses, I don't use abusive language and stuff like that, but it's important that what comes out of your mouth matters when you're dealing with high school kids, because they're listening to it. And there may be parents on the, watching practice, or people that are out there that you would want to influence later on. But by the fact that you're lost in your own world right there, you don't have an idea what you say, how you act, and how you react matters. So I'd say be cognizant, be present about where you are, be where your feet are, do a good job at what you're doing, and let that speak for itself. And that becomes your resume.
And how does one, spending those hours, the 12, the 14, 18 hours watching the tape, how do you advise those young coaches now that they've gotten that job, or they're on your staff, or they've moved up? How do you kind of advise them on, okay, so how do I find that balance with the family and going from there?
Yeah, sure. So intentionally and purposely, on Sundays, even though we have like walkthroughs and we watch film from the previous day, we bring the families over for dinner, because on Sundays and Mondays, a lot of time during the season, are the late days, because you're breaking down film, you're getting ready for the next opponent. But on Sundays, we bring the families over so the kids can run around the hallway, be with their dad. Wives can see their husbands. Wives don't have to worry about making meals because we provide the meals here. So we want to talk about those things. And then the other thing is, we practice, we get in early, but when practice is over, it's important to me that because we get in earlier, is that our guys go home and be a dad. Go put your son or your daughter to sleep, wash the dishes, do a load of clothes, or whatever it is. Remember, don't put the white clothes in there with the red clothes, and then try to put Clorox bleach in it, because don't do that. But I try to set up a culture where, if you're going to say faith family is important, you try to set the culture up where the opportunities to do that are going to allow you to be a father or a husband. And so, it's intentional. Each staff is different. Each coach is different, but that's the way I've been, all the stops as being a head coach. And because I think it is, and I know it's critically important.
Coach, we wanted to take a quick second to kind of reintroduce things. It's Sports Talk 757 with really fortunate to have Coach Mike London at William & Mary with us this afternoon. Again, really wanted to recognize our sponsors, Hampton Roads Chamber, Optima Health, Atlantic Bay Mortgage, CHKD Sports Medicine, for putting this on. As many of you all know, we've had some great articles about Coach London, his work in the diversity and inclusion space, making sure there's opportunity out there for all coaches, not specifically minority coaches. We have with us now our Hampton Roads Chamber Officer of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, Ronnie Parker. And, we just thought it was such a great idea that he come on board and ask a few questions about this, since Mike London has not only had great coaching accolades, but done a lot off the field to provide opportunities for others. So Ronnie, we wanted you to chime in. We had so many things going on around the country in terms of racial injustice and making sure that minorities were included in these coaching ranks, and that opportunities were out there for people of color. And we really wanted you to weigh in on this and really pick Mike's brain about the work he's done in this space. So Ronnie, we wanted to hear from you.
No, Claudel, thank you so much for having me. Coach, thank you so much for being here with the Sports Commission, as well as the Hampton Roads Chamber. I'm elated with a lot of the work you're doing, as well as your past football history. So before I get into my deep dive of questions I'm going to ask you, I wanted you to know that the Hampton Roads Chamber really takes a deep look at diversity, equity, inclusion, and we strive to make sure that it's a piece of everything. It's not a separate entity, but it's involved in everything that we do. And with your history of trying to make sure that coaches that are usually underrepresented are in the spotlight more and represented, I wanted to bring a few questions to you that sometimes they might be on the uncomfortable end, but we see them every day in our public lives. We know that they're in our lives now, and I'd love to hear what you think about some of these questions. So I'm going to jump right in, Coach, and it's something that you mentioned earlier. You said NFL stands for not for long. And with that, we push inclusion here at the Chamber, and we are now seeing a push for players and coaches to have their own identities while also being part of an organization. So from what you're seeing, do you think that athletes are using their platforms and speaking on injustices? Do you see them bringing dissension in the locker room, or do you see them bringing the locker rooms together?
Well, what I've had an opportunity to experience firsthand. First of all, before I became I was a Dallas Cowboy. Spent a cup of coffee with the Cowboys. Ended up getting cut, and because of my father's background in the military, I always wanted to be a police officer, FBI agent, Secret Service. And when I got cut from the Cowboys, that's what I wanted to do. So I went to the police academy it was at VCU right there on campus there. And did that for 6 months, got out of the academy, and then became a police street crimes detective shortly after that. So the perspective of having the background and knowledge of what happens in law enforcement was something that's been a guided principle in terms of how I try to put things together and run the program. So if you're talking about the things that influence these young people, you want them to know that there's perspectives, there's perceptions, and there's realities. And what happens is if you don't know where you're going unless you know where you've been, you have to be able to have conversations. And we have all kind of players on my team. I think sport and teams are is a tremendous dynamic where I have white, black, I have Republicans, Democrats, I have kids from all socioeconomic backgrounds. that when they come together and the team is on the field, it doesn't matter if the quarterback, the wide receiver, or the running back scores, we score. We score a touchdown. So I think part of it is in using the voices and the platforms in a positive way is something that we encourage them to do. I remember early on, the protest marches, the peaceful protest marches were marred by others that were doing things like burning and looting buildings and things. And so that became the main that became the main topic about people that are marching within their God-given rights and being an American citizen were also being aligned with people that were doing things that were that you or I wouldn't agree with. So we had that long discussion after George Floyd's death, and because the whole nation saw it, and we brought our players together. I mean, there were perspective of African-American players that had, because they've seen this over and over again. There are perspectives of some of our white players that said, how can I be better? How can I know what you're feeling? And have that tough conversation. And what came out of it was some of our players, one of our captains had a conversation with his family and said, listen, my best friends, some of my best friends are African-Americans on this team. And when they hurt, I hurt. And I believe in them. And I want you to know that behaviors, words, gestures, and things like that, if it bothers them, it bothers me. So there was a cohesiveness that started to show over time with our team, because we decided to have just a critical conversation. No one wants to address the pink elephant in the room. But the biggest thing, and I'm sorry for taking so long, the biggest thing was having a perspective and a perception and your reality. Because I have to be able to step into your shoes and see what you see. But you got to be able to step in mine and see what I see as well. And so when we had constructive dialogue like that, it's been really, really good. We all know things are still going on in the country, but I believe sports and teams and other businesses and corporations and organizations, as long as we keep our perspective and perceptions known to our reality, and the other side's willing to listen, then we have something. Right now, and as we all see, there's a lot of people that are on opposite sides, don't want to listen to the other person's reality or perspective or perception. And so that's where there's division. So I'm glad I'm the head coach of this team. And we have a group of guys that are open to dialogue and then the actions that go behind it.
No, Coach, I know William & Mary is definitely glad to have you as the head coach. And I want to touch on something you mentioned, because you said you don't know where you're going unless you know where you came from. And what we're seeing with that is we're seeing a lot of these top tier athletes. Some of them are second guessing some of their decisions, and they're making a decision to go into HBCUs. Do you think what's going on out there in the social climate now is having a decision-making process within them deciding, hey, I want to attend the HBCU, I want to do something different, and where they come from? So what is your take on that?
We're all ruled by the psychology of results. So when you see things that are going on and your circle of influence are people that have experienced pain and agony and experienced some of the things that maybe other counterparts wouldn't, then the push towards back in the day when the HBCU schools used to bullet Bob Hayes. There are some guys that the professionals that a lot of African-American students went to those HBCU schools. I think that it has to be specific and particular to each one. If you feel during the recruiting process, how are they addressing diversity and the inclusion part? What's their faculty makeup look like? What's the current student ratio in terms of students of color? You have to ask those questions. But what I hope and what we pray is the fact that there are coaches on this staff that look like them. I've consciously and purposely made sure my staff reflects what our team looks like, and not because they have to be Black coaches, but because they're good men, they're good role models, they're good mentors, they're good teachers. And so we have Black and white about 50-50 on our staff, and they get along with the players respect them. That's how you're going to build a coalition. That's how you can recruit young men to say, listen, I understand you might want to go to an HBCU, and that's great for you. But if you don't, and you want to come to a school, be under the tutors, the leadership of a coach that looks like you, then this is the place to come. And so you see that's what's going on, and it'll continue to keep going on until we start coming together better as a country.
So and you're nailing all the questions I have on the head, because I'm really wanting to say, what are you seeing? Because there's so much dissension now, and you mentioned, hey, people are going to HBCUs, and that's great, but I want you to also know that we're doing things that we might not be in HBCU, but we're doing the things that says that we're inviting. We've got minority coaches in the lead. So in your community, I want to know, what do you see that brings some light or a beacon here within all of the dissension? Because I try to have conversations with business leaders that says, look, there's an acceptance piece and there's an agreement piece. We might not agree with everything that's going on, but we have to accept that changes are coming, and a lot of changes are coming for the positive. So what are you seeing in the coaching community as a whole that has you saying, look, this is hopeful, we're moving in the right direction, and this is a future that I can foresee being better for all athletes?
That's a great question. First of all, what I'm seeing with our student athletes here, we have student athletes that ever since George Floyd's death, is every Saturday there are student athletes that still gather and protest here in Williamsburg with signs, peaceful protests. There's a young lady that's been leading these protests, that's on our track team, that has done a phenomenal job being the face of a movement that says, we haven't forgotten, we still remember what's going on. There's some things that need to be changed that are systemic. And so there are students that are still engaged in it. Our players got with Norfolk State players, Hampton University players, ODU players, and they marched, they formed a coalition themselves. So this group of these 21st century young people now, it's like, it doesn't matter just the color. They come from all backgrounds, social, economic backgrounds, and their political issues, that they're coming together because they're saying, you know what, we see with our own eyes, because of the social media that they live in, we see it, we don't agree with it. And so this younger generation is taking more of an impetus on saying, we want change. Obviously, coaches, I'm involved in the Collegiate Coaching Diversity Pledge. And what that is, I'm a member of that. I'm a board member of that. And it asks that anytime there's a head position open for football or basketball, men and women's basketball, that at least a minority or the diversity of that the candidacy be included in groups that have been underrepresented over the years. And so it's a pledge that you take. It's just saying, listen, as we start interviewing people, we want to make sure that our group is inclusive of a lot of maybe of misrepresented coaches or people, in the profession, whether it's basketball or football. And so coaches can also, talk about the issues that are going on and the need for quality change, but also for actionable change. That's the other thing. You want to see actionable things done. We talk a lot about doing things, but spending action, being demonstrative about how we go about doing it. So it's like I said, the young people and the movement of just saying there's enough people in this country that say, you know what, yeah, you're right. And the great thing about it is not just back in the 60s where you saw the majority of a certain color, but now you see a mixture of people saying, you know what, that's not right. And so I see hope. I'm encouraged. Even despite the pandemic and all the things about play a season or not a season, all those things that are going on. I see hope for humanity. People don't care about how much you know till they know about how much you care, and I see more people doing that, and that's critical because on the other side, there's other people also showing that they don't care. But I just continue to keep believing. When I sat in the room in isolation, going through the COVID issue, there's got to be a bigger plan and purpose of that's happening, the things that are happening that are going on that'll lead us, into a positive future. So I'm a glass half filled guy. I'm gonna stick to that.
Hey, that's what we're looking for, Coach. And you really nailed all my questions. So I definitely want to bring Claudel back in. I want to ask you one last thing just to get your piece and take on it. You mentioned something that's important. It's diverse. It's not just diversity doesn't mean black and white as we often think in the public. We see diversity, we hear it, and it scares a lot of people because they just want to talk about black and white relations and tensions. There's other groups out there. There's the pay we're missing amongst males and females. There's coaches, obviously, minority coaches, women coaches. So from what you're seeing, it seems like you think we're moving in the right direction. So we seem to be on the right track. But if we are missing something, or what could we add possibly to either get things moving faster or keep things in the right direction for the future of coaching?
Well, I mean, you just made mention of one of the biggest things. When you say diversity, you're right. It does not just necessarily mean black or white. There's Native American, there's Asian. I mean, specific. So there are other coaches, other races, other underrepresented groups that are looking for opportunities to get into coaching. I believe in the internship, the graduate assistant route, where it's one of those things that you take someone who wants to learn it and be part of it, and you coach them and teach them. What happens is a guy that's been coaching for a long time, when you have a young position open, you end up hiring that guy for the young position. And, we kind of got away from the graduate assistant model where you take them for the 2 years that they're here, you role model, you mentor them, you show them how to recruit, you show them the different things of the team dynamics, and they start to form their own identity, but you have a part in helping them form that identity, instead of taking someone that's already done it and come in, just kind of be a piece that fits into your machine. So we got to get back to bringing in people that we can role model and mentor, whether it's volunteers or whatever it may be, to have a dedicated and be intentional about taking some of these young kids and show them this could be a great profession. Like I said, national championship, ACC Coach of the Year in 2011, can never take that away. God is good, and so I have no complaints about my career and what's going on. I have a picture in my office where I'm standing next to Tony Dungy. I stand on his shoulders. And now I find in my career now that it's my turn now for someone else to stand on my shoulders.
Great.
And so, paying it forward, or whatever you want to call it, that's what you feel. That's what I feel led to do, and surround myself with coaches that want to do that as well. So, that's what's going on. And like I said, we hope that the better days are ahead of us as we move forward.
That's great, Coach. Thank you. I think you've definitely provided some tangibles, especially how you asked my last question, answered it rather, with, this is what we can do. We're doing great. We're moving in the right direction, but it's what we can do. So I certainly appreciate you taking the time to answer some of those tougher questions, and I'd love to hear more. I know Claudio's got a few more questions for you as well.
Thanks. I appreciate you. Thank you for what you do. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Ronnie, appreciate your time there and chiming in and weighing in and providing that great insight. Coach, something we talked about, though, a number of our viewers and my own self, the adversity. And we've seen you, the Coach of the Year, we've seen you get these coaching positions. We see you take a Richmond and have them nationally ranked or get votes for being nationally ranked. And then we've seen you in cases to where a pylon or a field goal kick or a gust of wind, I would have had you win some of the most prestigious games of your career, and you just didn't win them. But you're still standing, you're still with a smile, you're still positive, you're still leading young men in the right direction, overcoming adversity and bouncing back and still being this positive figure. How have you been able to do all of that at these different coaching posts? And what are your advice to young coaches and athletes on how to stay positive and navigate through adversity?
Yeah. Early in my career, I am a big advocate. I'm on the board of Be the Match. And I'm an advocate because I had my daughter Tyson, who just had her birthday yesterday, 17 years post-transplant, just turned 25. And the quick story with that was I was at Boston College. Coach Tom O'Brien was the head coach, and he's been all over the place. And she got sick. We were in a bowl game and took her to the doctors. The doctor said, your daughter has a disease called Fanconi anemia. It's your body's inability to fight off infections. And so I said, what's the cure? I'm a young coach at the time. They're like, well, the cure is a bone marrow transplant. I'm like, well, let's get one of those in. They're like, it's not that easy. In fact, in the African-American community, it's less likely to find matches than other communities, ethnic backgrounds. And so we kind of went a ways trying to find out if we could find a match. Couldn't find a match. And I was leaving Boston College to come to UVA, and Al Groh was the head coach at UVA at that time as an assistant. So lo and behold, Johns Hopkins was a hospital that did bone marrow transplants. And we went in there, my wife and I, Regina, we went in there one day. We're frantic because we couldn't find a match. He joined the National Bone Marrow Registry. And then they said, let's try you, Mr. London. The odds of the parent are a match 10,000 to 1. I heard 1,000,000 to 1, all kind of things. And so I'll never forget. They took my blood. They called me and my wife up to their offices in Johns Hopkins in Baltimore, and they said, Mr. London, you're the match. You're the match for your daughter.
That's real.
Take your time, Coach.
So that was 17 years ago, being described as being the match. And I'll never forget that when he said you're the match. He's getting her master's degree at Lynchburg University. And so that experience, and an experience being a police officer up in Richmond, had a gun pulled and the trigger didn't go off. And I'm still standing here right now. So I guess I say all that because of all the things that can happen to you, that have happened, that I've experienced, and the man upstairs has allowed me to continue on. And whatever happened in a game that you keep score, all those things that happen like that, then the ability to have overcome and seen the odds be in my favor, then the experiences of the tough wins and the tough losses are things I get over very quickly, because I shouldn't be sitting here having this conversation with you in the audience. My daughter wouldn't be here if it wasn't for his intervention and the miracle that occurred. So as we were talking before, being a glass half filled guy, there's tough things that happen in life. And you don't have to accept it, but you have to know that through your faith, or through your just getting up and brushing yourself off and just keep getting up. Jeremiah 29:11 says, for I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you for your hope in the future. My favorite verse, all this time during tough times and adversity, always talking about that, because now I'm responsible for 95 plus young men. And because mine was spared, my child's life was spared, my life was spared. I have parents who said, take my son. I'm not perfect, but at the same time, take my son and talk about the possibilities. Talk about the things that a grown man can do, can tell you he can love you, can cry with you, can kick you in the butt, can be passionate and energetic. Show them those things, Coach. So all of us have callings or have opportunities to do things. I'm just in a position of coaching and teaching, run around with shorts on, blowing a whistle, headbutting players after good plays and knocking myself out. I just have to be in a position to be able to do that, which is great for me. So that's it.
Coach, you certainly hit the nail on the head. The coaches who are watching the show, who will see this on the back end, I just hope they'll play it and play it and play it again. Just what a great example of, going through those experiences and just realizing what's most important. These wins and losses hurt and help our careers and, have us on this roller coaster. I've coached a number of years, but you just could not have said it any better. What really matters at the end of the day, and it's that faith and family and what we've been through. So, we really appreciate this, allowing Ronnie to join the conversation, allowing the conversation to take all different turns. And this has been a truly special episode. We certainly appreciate your time. We'll close this thing out here. We appreciate everybody who's joined us for this very special episode with Coach London on this afternoon. We thank our sponsors, thank the Chamber for allowing this to happen. We don't have to wait until next Thursday or the Thursday after. We'll be right back again tomorrow, less than 24 hours, with NBA referee and referee legend and philanthropist in the area, Tony Brothers. So we'll have him on the show at noon, and Tony will no doubt allow us to get some more insight on some of these subjects. In order to see some of our previous recordings and this recording, please visit HamptonRoadSports.org and the Hampton Road Sports Commission YouTube channel. But again, Coach, thank you for your time. We've taken up enough of your lunch hour. We know you have some more videotape to watch, and coaches to mentor and players to mentor, alumni to shake hands with. We know you guys have a challenging time there at William and Mary, but you're going to overcome that too with the new athletic director in line and following his vision. So we thank you this afternoon. We thank our participants, and we hope everybody has a blessed day, and please stay safe.
Thanks for having me. Take care.
All right. Thank you, guys.